The piece itself was to a large extent about a lunch in 2011 when the Queen reportedly made some very critical remarks about the European Union. Aren't you making a bit of a leap from those critical remarks to the claim that she backs us leaving the EU?
I don't think so. You have to bear in mind that the recall of the event was very detailed by one of our sources, and it's not the first time, or indeed the last time, that the Queen has uttered critical remarks about the European Union. It's clear that our story had more than one source. We had a second event at Buckingham Palace where the Queen uttered very critical remarks indeed about the European Union. Indeed, I'm reminded today that if you go back into political diaries from the 1970s, that the Queen was very critical of the EU then, in public and in private events where she thought her views wouldn't necessarily be quoted. So I think the story has a fair amount of substance.
You said that you know more than you've printed. Are you going to print some more on this? I'm
not sure. We do know more than we printed, and part of the reason why we didn't put all of that in the public domain was to protect our sources. We do reserve the right to use some of that information. I haven't yet decided whether or not we're going to do that. We will defend ourselves very, very stoutly, and I think our position remains extremely strong. It's worth pointing out, I think, that although the Palace might be upset, they didn't deny the story when they had ample opportunity to do so the day before we published.
So you talked to them in detail about the story before you published?
Both they and Nick Clegg had ample opportunity to deny the story, and they declined to do so. They've obviously issued more robust statements once they saw the coverage that the story got, but in advance they issued very careful statements which rather fell short of a full denial, in my own opinion.
Now, much of the world believes your source is the Justice Secretary, Michael Gove, was it?
They can believe what they like. We would never reveal who our sources are. I think it's interesting to note that there's clearly a smear operation underway at the moment and an attempt to identify Michael Gove. It wouldn't take too much of a cynic to assume that part of the reason for that is a desire to remove him as a leading light of the Leave campaign. And I think it's worth putting into the public domain that among those who are circulating the idea that it is Michael Gove is people close to Nick Clegg, who have told lobby correspondents that they believe Michael Gove is the source. And I think Nick Clegg has questions to answer, because he's gone from being, I don't recollect this event, to it's nonsense, to now being certain that it's Michael Gove. So which is it? I think he has to answer that.
Now, there are some, like the prominent senior MP Nicholas Soames, who think that members of the Privy Council have breached the oath of secrecy in talking to you. Do you think that's right?
I've no idea. I mean, the idea that there is some sort of Ruritanian anonymity for the Queen is for the birds. I mean, the Queen's views on a whole range of matters have been known for decades. Back in 1986, the Sunday Times highlighted that she was at odds with Margaret Thatcher. She questioned economists about their failure to spot the financial crisis. She made those coded remarks about the Scottish referendum. She's regularly telling ministers about her views on matters. The idea that she doesn't have opinions does her a disservice, I think. We're journalists, we just have to put these things in the public domain, and I'm not a member of the Privy Council, so I'm not bound by those oaths.
The Sun hasn't been the greatest fan of the royal family in recent history. Do you think your readers care what the Queen thinks about this?
Oh, the reaction to it has been overwhelmingly positive. They are very engaged in the European debate. We get more letters and emails about it than any other particular subject, and the fuss that's been generated would tell you that it's highly sensitive and important, and therefore informative to the readers.
And so, for the Sun, are you an admirer of the Queen for taking this stand?
I think it's marvellous that we're hearing what the Queen's views are, and I think the idea that she should be shielded from publicity, and the idea that she should be shielded from from what she really thinks, the public should be shielded from what she really thinks, is a nonsense. And by the way, ministers are pretty candid in talking about what the Queen tells them. We've recounted in today's paper the fact that when David Cameron made the remarks, picked up on camera about how the Queen purred with delight when she realised that the European referendum vote, the Scottish referendum vote had gone in his favour. I can catalogue a conversation that I've had in recent times where a very senior minister said to me that the Queen wanted to give David Cameron 6 of the best for that. So the idea that we don't know the Queen's views on a range of issues, I think is entirely wrong, and people should welcome the opportunity to hear what she has to say.
Now, this is a pretty big test for the new watchdog of the media, Ipso. If they find against you, is your job on the line?
Look, Ipso will have to do what it does, and we'll have to report it faithfully. I don't think my job is on the line whatsoever. What we'll have to do is just abide by the Ipso code, which we do, and if they find against us, we'll report it quite faithfully. They found against us already, and we've reported it quite faithfully. It's what we do professionally.
Tony Gallagher, many thanks.